Come to DSW for the shoes, stay for the fun. Because, let's be honest, if shoe shopping isn't fun, are you even doing it right? So go ahead, try something new. Try something different. Good different. Try something that feels like you. You know, the real you. And then definitely brag about it later. Because at DSW, you've got unlimited freedom to play. Find the shoes that get you at prices that get your budget at DSW stores or at DSW.com. Let us surprise you.
Hello and welcome into the latest edition of the Show Before the Show podcast, the official podcast of minor league baseball as we record on a Friday afternoon. This is a very late recording time and it's all my fault. My name is Simon Mon. Sam Dykstra is in New York City carrying the weight of this episode. He's done all of the work. Hi, Sam.
That's a lot of pressure you just put on me.
I did. If this episode sucks, it's Sam's fault.
Yeah. Anyways, I just rolled into this podcast and now here's Sam. And anything that goes wrong, it's on him. So let's begin the show.
Pretty much. That's that was the goal that I was aiming for.
I mean, I will say, like, part of my anxiety, and this is somebody who's always trying to provide accurate information, is that when we record on a Thursday, something could happen Thursday night.
True.
As happened last week, kind of. You know,
True.
We recorded on a Wednesday at one point, and then Gabriel Moreno got called up by the Toronto Blue Jays.
Yeah.
And we had to add another foul ball because of that. So the fact that we are recording now on Friday and this podcast will be up hours later.
Yeah.
Will mean everything's pretty much accurate and right up to the minute.
It's going to be great. You're getting the latest breakingest news. And with that, we welcome you into this week's episode of the Show Before the Show. You can get in touch with us, podcast at milb.com. And we did have people last week after we said, like, no one emails us anymore. We had people email us. So huge thanks. Anthony Corona, longtime listener, got in touch and said that he has been tuned in for quite some time. He said he also read a rumor that we were all going to visit Modesto soon. So that would be great. And then he continued and said, quote, please note that the rumor is just wishful thinking, which, hey, man, I'm down. I'm down for a trip to Modesto. So big thanks to Anthony. And also an email from the Stadium Food Girl, who was tuned in, I want to say on a road trip. She tagged us on Instagram and said that she was tuned in and was going to catch up on a whole bunch of episodes and has gotten a chance to listen as we blabber on about, you know, our standard nonsense. So huge thanks to her as well. And here we are in this week's edition of the Show Before the Show. And we've got so much to get to. But if you too would like to get in touch, by the way, Val Ruiz is the Stadium Food Girl's name, but you can find her on social media as the Stadium Food Girl. Get in touch with us, podcast at milb.com. You can find Sam on Twitter at Sam Dykstra, MILB, Benjamin Hill at Ben's Biz. Josh Jackson will be coming along pretty soon for Ghosts of the Miners. We will get a chance to hear from Josh as well. And let's kick it off. Three Strikes returns for this week's episode of the Show Before the Show. And you know what else returns? Minor League Baseball clinching season, as we are already awarding some playoff spots for the 2022 postseason. First three teams into the pool, all from the single A and high A levels. The very first team to clinch, South Atlantic League's Aberdeen Ironbirds, the North Division first half champions of that high A circuit. Aberdeen really has not slowed down at all this year. They've had 6 winning streaks of 4 games or longer this season. They got to 10 games over 500 on April 30th. They were 15-5, 20 games over 500 on June 9th, 37-17. They've already hit the 40 win mark. And that team, you know, they've been loaded throughout the year. We also had 2 clinchings from the Florida State League. The East and West divisions both clinched actually on the same night. The St. Lucie Mets, who as of their clinch date were 22-3 at home this season at Clover Park. They clinched the East side. On the West side, the Fort Myers Mighty Muscles with a 2.91 staff ERA as of their clinch date. That was the best in minor league baseball. 3 teams already into the pool. More coming as the week goes along. and the weeks go along toward the end of the first half, coming up here in June. But Sam, we are into minor league postseason thinking mode, at least. And the minor league postseason has changed a little bit since the restructuring of minor league baseball. Obviously, we have a whole new AAA championship weekend coming up. Give us the lowdown on the minor league postseason in 2022.
Yeah, so for our longtime listeners, this is a little bit closer to the postseasons of old, going back to 2019 and before that. I mean, some of these leagues used to have lots of teams in the playoffs. Pretty much all single A, high A, and double A leagues will now have 4 teams in the playoffs, which is an expansion from last year when it was only 2. COVID playing a role in that. You didn't want 4 teams all traveling unnecessarily for a postseason at the end of the year, which is just kind of a sweetener at the end. It's not a make or break thing for some of these leagues. But what I enjoy most about these leagues expanding back to 4 playoff teams is that it rewards first half performers. They're part of the goal of minor league baseball, obviously, is to move up the ladder. So you might have a team that is really good in the first half because a lot of good prospects were there. And once they're good, they move up to double A or high A. And, they don't really get rewarded. They don't get that celebration. Now by having first half clinchings back, you have that celebration with your teammates before you move on to another level. So yes, those teams that lose all their prospects in the middle of the season, they still get to go to the postseason. They may not be favorites to do so, but at least they get that nice little first half reward, which is what I enjoy most. We should also add that the high A Northwest League is not expanding its playoffs. It will remain as 2 teams in a best of 5 championship series. The reason for that, the Northwest League only has 6 teams. It'll be a little weird if 2/3 of the league makes the playoffs. So there's still only 2, but there will be a best of 5 championship series. 2 best teams with the best overall regular season record will be rewarded for that. But yeah, a cool little thing that got announced in the past, I want to say 2 weeks. And now we're starting to see some of those changes, bud fruit with all those clinchings that you mentioned there, Tyler. And like you said, more to come here in the weekend ahead and the next couple of days.
All right, strike 2 this week. We are, as hard as it is to believe, we're closing in on the Major League All-Star Game in 2022. And of course, for baseball fans all over, the All-Star Week festivities have been expanded now to include the Major League Draft in addition to the Futures Game, which of course has always been a big-time All-Star Week destination. Futures Game is something that, since we started this show, we've loved getting a chance to cover and to talk about. And there are so many intriguing prospects who could be part of that game this year. Sam, give me one name of somebody who you want to be included when futures game rosters are announced coming up here soon.
Yeah. So, there's many different ways we could go about this. We could fill out our own rosters. We could talk about a pitcher, a player. We'll just focus on one player now as we get closer to the day. We'll break down the rosters further as announcements come out. But in terms of somebody who I really hope is on the roster, it's Francisco Alvarez of the New York Mets system, just because he is so hot right now. He was already in the conversation sort of with Adley Rutschman, with Gabriel Moreno as the top catching prospect in baseball. Now that those guys are in the majors, he's the top catching prospect in minor league baseball. And you could make an argument that maybe he caught up or even surpassed Moreno on that scale prior to Moreno making the majors. He's super hot right now. Like I was saying, through his last 19 games, he's homered 10 times for Double-A Binghamton. He's got a 347 average, 415 on base, 847 slugging percentage. That works out to a 1.262 OPS in his last 19 games. He was young for the level coming into Double-A this year at 20 years old. He's not going to turn 21 until November. And one of the great things about the futures game, the whole point of it is to put some of the best tools in all of minor league baseball onto a big stage. This year, that will be Dodger Stadium. But it also allows us to get data on some of these guys. It allows us to see them in a batting practice. Alvarez could easily put on a show in batting practice, just driving.
He did last year.
He did last year, right? You were there,
standing
Tyler,
at the cage and thinking like, "Holy cow, this dude is the real deal." I mean, I knew about Francisco Alvarez before that, but seeing him in person, seeing his build, and watching him just demolish baseballs into the pavilion and left field here in Denver was, he is every bit the real deal.
Yeah, and that was when he was 19.
Right.
He's now a year older. He's seen upper level pitching. He's demolishing upper level pitching now. This game just seems tailor-made. I know he was in it last year and maybe he wants some fresh faces, but Alvarez might be in the conversation now given how solid he looks defensively and how obviously good he is offensively for being the top prospect in baseball, that's a conversation we'll have later down the line at MLB Pipeline as we come up with our midseason list in about a month and a half after the draft. But Alvarez, I think, has to be one of the first names on that list, at least for me. Tyler, do you got anybody you're hoping to see there in LA?
I do, and I would make this pick no matter which organization he was with. It's a homer pick since I live in Denver, coincidentally, but a guy who's got as much helium as maybe any prospect in baseball this year is Ezequiel Tovar, who is the Rocky shortstop prospect at Double-A Hartford this year, has climbed into the top 100. I know he was a discussion point in the MLB Pipeline inbox this week. Jonathan Mayo talked about Tovar a little bit and said the reason that Ezequiel Tovar may not reach top 10 prospect status in baseball is because he could graduate to the big leagues before he gets the chance to be re-ranked there. I mean, that's how good he's been. And obviously the Rockies have a need at the big league level at shortstop after this season with Jose Iglesias only on a 1-year deal, but Tovar has been so good. He's only 20 and he's at the Double-A level. He has just been outstanding this season in pretty much every measure for Hartford. His slash line is 311, 386, 568. He's got 13 homers, 42 runs batted in. And again, he's 20 years old. He just made his pro debut back in 2018, and he's really been pushed ever since then. I mean, he played at high A last year when he was still just a teenager. And that's a guy who I think is as close to a shoe-in for a game like this as anybody.
Yeah, Tovar, I remember seeing him last year in the fall league, and part of our conversation was this guy's basically major league ready defensively. He's incredibly good at a premium position of shortstop with the glove. And he was good with the bat last year in the fall league. Lots of people were good with the bat last year in the fall league. So we kind of discounted that coming into this year. But the way, again, still focused on that Eastern League, the way he's performed so well for Hartford at that age has been really, really special. And we recently added him to the top 100. Whenever we do an update or if we can sneak in one more market corrections, he's not going to be sitting in that 90 level. He's going to be moving up pretty significantly beyond that. So this would be a great opportunity for him. You were saying like maybe he doesn't become a top 10 overall prospect because he graduates before this. I think this might be his last chance at a futures game.
Yeah, I think you're probably right.
Because I'm sure Albuquerque's beckoning at this point. And if Albuquerque's beckoning and he performs as well there as he has at Hartford, Denver will be beckoning opening day next year, basically. Because again, the glove is already ready. It's just testing the bat, and he's passing every test with flying colors as far as that goes.
And if you've got your own thoughts on who you would like to see in the futures game, again, podcast at MILB.com. It's always one of the most fun topics of the summer for us, talking futures game stuff, and it's coming up next month at Dodger Stadium. And strike 3 this week, there was a game that came with a whole lot of emotion in San Antonio, Texas, a couple of days ago, in which the San Antonio Missions, dressed in Uvalde Coyotes high school baseball jerseys, auctioned those off after the game, trailed the majority of the game, and then got the walk-off victory. A very cool thing for San Antonio, a moment of celebration wearing Uvalde across their chests. Sam, it's a month that has been really difficult for not only obviously that community in that area, the entire state of Texas and the entire country as well. Minor league baseball teams are always so good at being able to figure out how can we help. And this is a really amazing thing for the Missions to have done. And I mean, you see that photo, those jerseys on the field, that's emotional to see, and very cool of the Missions to be able to do something to help out and to try to uplift some spirits as well.
Yeah. And it was just such a cool moment to follow last night. Not just seeing Uvalde on a professional baseball field, a Double-A field. We should mention, San Antonio is 80 miles from Uvalde. They're the closest major city really to do this. So it made all the sense of the world for the San Antonio Missions to get involved somehow, but it's easy for us to say that. It's still something they need to pull off. And having Uvalde across these guys' chests, again, they're replicas of the high school jerseys that these guys are actually wearing. It's not just a patch. It's not just a hat. It's the whole deal. It was such a cool thing. And then if you get a chance, go to the Missions Twitter page. There's a video of the walk-off moment, come from behind victory. And the second it happened, It's like your typical walk-off, all the missions are flooding the field, but there's also this giant flag that says Uvalde strong. And, I'm a writer at heart, and I'm a storyteller at heart. And it matters to see stuff like that. Just, it might be AA baseball. You might kind of put it off to the side and say, what does this really matter? But if you're Uvalde and San Antonio is the city for you, that is a big deal to all of a sudden see the biggest city near you rallying around you guys, seeing these guys who are future major leaguers. I mean, there's going to be some future major leaguers who are wearing Uvalde jerseys on Thursday. And knowing that they wore your team name on there was really cool. All the proceeds are going to the Robb School Memorial Fund, as they should. So they're aiding the families of those affected by the tragedy. And our own Michael Avalone wrote a piece for MILB.com. I think they reproduced it on MLB.com as well. I encourage everybody to go check that out. But there's a section of that I wanted to share, a quote from that, from Philip Wellman, who's been the manager in San Antonio for a while now, so knows the area. And he said, we're fathers, we're sons, and to see something like that happen and to also have children involved is just devastating. The only way to combat evil is with kindness and generosity. What we did tonight can't replace what those families have lost, but any amount can help ease some of the financial burden they will be dealing with. The feelings of remorse and grief, you just wish you could do more. And, I'm sure the San Antonio missions, this is just the start of what they're doing. I'm sure they've helped out before this, and I'm sure everybody in that area is going to continue to be there for Uvalde. But this seemed like a very special moment and a kind of a unique baseball moment as well.
And before we wrap up Three Strikes on this week's episode of the show before the show, there's one more story that we want to discuss. And that is a piece that was in The Athletic this week by Britt Giroli, who is a former MLB.com writer, of course, and now is one of the national baseball writers for The Athletic. And she had a piece on the site about former Lynchburg Hillcats radio voice Maura Sheridan, who was one of the, at the time, 4 women who were lead play-by-play voices or play-by-play voices at all in minor league baseball, and did not return to the Lynchburg Hillcats after her lone season there. And if you were somebody who was wondering earlier this year, what happened to Maura Sheridan? We know about some of the other broadcasters around minor league baseball, and she's not back in the minor leagues. This story explains why, and it is really difficult to read. Maura Sheridan reported a sexual assault by a player on that Hillcats team that occurred in 2021, and she was not brought back to the Hillcats, who evidently posted her job on a job forum without communicating with her to figure out whether or not she would be back in 2022. I spent 4 years as a radio broadcaster in the minor leagues. I have never heard of a team doing that. That is unconscionable to me for a front office to do that. And obviously there is a lot more at play than just, oh, we thought you weren't coming back. There is a whole sublayer to this story. We very much encourage you to read the story. Maura is a great broadcaster. I love being able to listen to her last year when I was, cutting highlights from Lynchburg, or, watching on MILB.TV or listening on MILB.com. We have made some progress in on-field roles, especially for women in baseball. There's been so much more of a spotlight put on women's baseball and women in baseball, but there is so much more that needs to be done. And stories like this showcase one massive element of that. And it's something that we did not want to neglect to bring up this week. It is a tremendously difficult story to read, but it is an infinitely worse thing to go through and feel alone through, something that I cannot even begin to imagine. And it's a piece that I believe is unlocked at theathletic.com. So you don't need an Athletic subscription to read it. But we wanted to make sure that we talked about this a little bit.
Yeah, I think the big thing there is we want folks to read it just to hear Maura in her own words. It's written by Britt Giroli, but it still, features quotes from Maura herself and telling this very difficult story. And obviously we're glad that she felt comfortable enough to come forward with it, because it's not always easy to talk about something like that. We stand with Maura with every fiber of our being. One of the good things about that story was reading that she has landed on her feet at the NWSL. with an announcing gig over there, which is top flight women's soccer in this country. That is a huge gig. Great for her. I'm glad she's still behind a mic anywhere. But it's an important story. Again, I'm glad she told it, and we encourage everybody to go read it for themselves just to hear what happened to her.
And that is 3 strikes for this week's episode of the show before the show. I was not around for our interview segment this week because I was out of town with a girlfriend. We ended up having to drive back from visiting her family in Texas a little early. So I spent like 15 hours in the car yesterday. So Sam and Ben handled our interview segment and their discussion for this week. And my huge thanks to you two dudes. But Sam, give us the little lowdown on what's coming up interview wise this week. It features a bear, which I'm very excited about.
Yeah,
I'm very bummed that I missed.
Yeah, so I'm going to let Ben tease that out first because I wanted to have my discussion with Ben, just the two of us, catching up on some of the stuff we've written. But yeah, just to tease that out a little bit longer, 2 segments from now, Ben and I will be talking with somebody from the Asheville Tourists about a bear. We're going to leave it at that. But first up, here's me and Ben.
You know Gray Bar for electrical parts, but there's one more thing you may not be thinking of us for that can help maximize your next project's total value. Our pre-project planning services are designed to help you win the bid, save on labor costs, and keep your installers productive across your entire build. The sooner you call us, the better. Because when we're there from the beginning, we can anticipate your needs and help you solve problems before they become problems. Yep, Gray Bar does that.
Well, last week, Ben and I came to you from an alleyway in Coney Island, which was pretty noisy, if I recall, in listening back to it. And there, we joked that you might hear some screams from the roller coaster, and they definitely came across in the file. So we were in a much quieter space currently. Ben is to my right. I don't actually get to say that very often in introducing a segment, but we are here in the Edgar Martinez room at MLB HQ. And continuing this week on the show before the show with more stories from Ben's road trips through New England. First off, Ben, hello.
Hello, Sam. It's good to be here in the Edgar Martinez conference room.
Yeah, there's a DH joke in here somewhere. We did not bring gloves either, so I guess that's it. But anyway, so yeah, like I said, we want to touch a little bit more on some of the stories that you're writing or have already written about your trips to New England with stops in Hartford, Manchester, New Hampshire, and Portland, Maine. But we'll start in Hartford because you had this really great story about the PA announcer with the Yard Goats and how he's not letting Tourette's get in the way of his dream job. That's the title of the story. Kind of take us through your discussions with him.
Yeah, well, first of all, I'd say being here in the Edgar Martinez conference room, I should not be fielding your questions. But yes, on MILB.com this week and featured as well in the Ben's Biz Beat newsletter, please subscribe, is my story on Jared Doyon. I hope I'm pronouncing that last name right. But Jared is the PA announcer for the Hartford Yard Goats. And yes, he has Tourette's syndrome. And, I was tipped off to that story when I arrived at the ballpark, and I said, I'd love to, meet him and interview him because Tourette's, very briefly speaking, I'm not too familiar with it, but it's a condition, a neurological condition characterized by uncontrollable physical and vocal outbursts, called tics. So you'd think, just assuming, and what happens to those who assume, or what they say, but assuming you hear someone who has the job of PA announcer, you assume they don't have Tourette's because those symptoms seem incompatible with the job. But Jared told me that, he just does not let it stop him. And, key for him is that you're only on the mic in a PA announcer job for, 5 seconds, 10 seconds, 20 seconds. So that's a very controlled state, a very controlled environment. And he said that when he's in that environment, it's like he doesn't have Tourette's, and it's never been an issue for him on the mic. But it's obviously a lot to overcome, both in the perception of others as well as, one's own confidence issues, to pursue on a career like that, while dealing with Tourette's. So really interesting story. I thought, not just because I wrote it, but just the actual subject I think is interesting. It was great to meet Jared, get a sense of who he is. And, it was a privilege to write about him, and I'm glad I met him, and that's a unique story. And if you go to a Hartford Yard Goats game at Dunkin' Donuts Park and you hear Jared on the PA, you know that much more about him, and I think it's a good fact to know.
Yeah, and like I said, check out that story right now. It is live on MILB.com about Jared Doyon. And then moving along to Manchester, New Hampshire, you know, we talked about this a little bit last week, and we've previewed it before, but you were there for Chicken Tenders Night, and you got to write about that extensively and kind of organize your thoughts on that. Just kind of take us through that one more time in case anybody who hasn't listened to the show, or, you know, based off your writing, what Chicken Tenders Night was like there at the home of the Fisher Cats.
Right. Manchester, where the Fisher Cats are located, is the birthplace of the chicken tender. They were invented at the Puritan Backroom Restaurant in 1974. That's an establishment that's been around in one form or another since 1917. And again, I say this all the time, but I like minor league baseball as an avenue to learn about these kind of things. And so on MILB.com, there is now a full write-up of the event and the ideas behind it. And having attended it, I think one of the best aspects, and one that was pretty crucial, is that at the ball game in which the team dressed up, wore uniforms as the chicken tenders, they served Puritan backroom chicken tenders at the ballpark. And I was able to speak with the man who now runs the Puritan backroom. He's third generation in the family that has always owned it. His name is Arthur Pappas. And in talking to him, it's just good to get the perspective of a business owner who really cares. He was into the whole idea, but it gave him some pause and some anxiety, because he said to me, hey, I can make chicken tenders for 400 people, but I can't do it for 4,000, or at least I didn't think I could. And it's funny, as much as this place has invented the chicken tenders, sold, untold hundreds of thousands, if not millions of chicken tenders through the years, they never really done it in bulk beyond the confines of the restaurant. And, so he, in a sense, didn't want to be involved in that way at first, because it's his product. And, a business owner cares a lot about their product and how it's represented. But he said, I worked at it and I found a method of flash freezing where they could then be, cooked up at the game. And I was happy with it. And, I did not have the chicken tenders myself, being gluten-free, but my designated eater had nothing but good things to say. I can tell you they looked phenomenal. And so then Art Pappas said to me, maybe I found a new way to get our chicken tenders all over the country. And when you've invented chicken tenders and now you can maybe, have them be sold in stores, or at least be able to ship them to people, maybe this promotion resulted in a whole new era for the Puritan backroom, where these chicken tenders can truly go nationwide. Or maybe not, but at least it was interesting to hear that that's a possibility now. Based on cooking, they had 10,000 chicken tenders at the game in original and coconut, which is a Puritan backroom specialty. They did not have the buffalo chicken tenders, because those just were a little more labor intensive to make, with the extra step of tossing them in the sauce and all that. But they had the classic and the coconut. And I learned that there's a fourth chicken tender, which at the Puritan backroom, which is not represented in any of the team's branding or the various hats they sold. There's just one called Spicy. And I don't know what that entails, but there are at least 4 types of chicken tenders at the Puritan backroom. So if you're going to Manchester, or if you're from that area, well, if you're from that area, you've probably already been to the restaurant. But if you're visiting the Fisher Cats, make sure to work in a trip to the Puritan backroom restaurant, get an order of chicken tenders, and you can taste where it all began.
I'm going to guess that it's almost like your buffalo chicken order at like a Buffalo Wild Wings or something like that. You can get mild buffalo, or you can get spicy buffalo. That's what I'm going to guess, but I haven't been. So I guess that's a reason for me to go up to Manchester at some point and figure out what's the difference between a buffalo chicken tender and a spicy chicken tender. Ben, I'm going to kind of put you on the spot here, looking at the 3 hats, because they sold different hats for each of these chicken tenders, the classic, the buffalo, and the coconut. Which would you actually buy of those 3?
I think I like the classic the best. I think if I was able to eat these chicken tenders and I ordered them at a restaurant, I'd probably go with buffalo. But in terms of the hat, I like the classic. One, it's a yellow brim. They all have blue backgrounds, blue bodies, but the yellow brim is unique to me, and I like that. And the buffalo is slathered in sauce and has horns and his eyes closed. He just looks a little too weird and out there. The coconut is wearing like a bra with a like coconut shell bikini top and a luau skirt. Again, just a little too goofy for me. I'm not saying a classic chicken tender cap featuring an anthropomorphic chicken tender isn't goofy, But by these standards, there's just a little more, I don't want to say dignity. We're dignified wearing anything, but it's a more classic look. That's what I'm trying to say. And by the standards of, if you're wearing a chicken tender hat, I would say it's not just you're not just representing the classic, but it's the most classic look. What about you, Sam?
I'm probably on your side there. I mean, buffalo is what I would definitely eat. Anybody who knows me, if there's a buffalo chicken sandwich on the menu, I'm probably ordering that. But you're right. I mean, just the look of the animated buffalo chicken tender, which looks a little bit like a demon. And I think it's slathered in sauce, but it also looks like it's maybe on fire. I don't know. There's just like a lot of things to explain. Whereas the classic, you kind of get it just by looking at it. You're going to get some funny looks no matter what, but that's part of the joy of the minor league hat. But you don't have to explain it further. Somebody can look at it and be like, all right, that's either a chicken tender or a chicken nugget or something. And that's pretty funny. Meanwhile, you're also asking why you have a devilish chicken on your head is a different story. So I'm probably on Team Classic as well. And Ben, just, going through Portland, you included a lot about Portland in your newsletter that's out now, a lot of which we've touched on your adventures with Josh Jackson, traveling through the state of Maine, or at least Southeast Maine. But anything else you want to kind of touch on about Portland, especially that was in that newsletter for folks to check out?
No, just that check out the newsletter. There is a newsletter registration page at the top of milb.com. You can specifically check to subscribe only to the Ben's Biz Beat, if that's what you're interested in. And always, as I keep saying, email me if you want to subscribe and you have not yet found that link, or if you have not seen me share it on Twitter, but benjamin.hill@mlb.com. The newsletter has a whole Josh Jackson, takeover portion in which he, explains some of the places we went along the way. And also a story that will be out tomorrow, Friday, the same day this podcast drops, is a story on Slugger, the Sea Dogs mascot. He's a dog. He is what was described to me by his unnamed spokesperson as a resting frown face. But the reason I wrote about Slugger, I usually don't write just specifically about a mascot, but if you're on social media, follow minor league teams, you've probably seen some Slugger skits come into your timeline over the last couple of years. A lot of props, theatricality, music cues. Slugger himself, has lots of dance moves and can flip. And they get a lot of attention. They're really well thought out 70-second comic vignettes. So I wanted to, give a little publicity to that and try to highlight what it is that makes Slugger truly a standout mascot in minor league baseball. And he's doing it up there in Maine. So special individuals out there in Maine. Josh Jackson, Slugger. I don't know Stephen King. What else do you need?
I was going to say we definitely need a third, and I think Stephen King accounts for like 5 Mainers in that discussion. So that pretty much wraps up the discussions we're probably going to have about your New England trip. But like so many things during the season, that means another trip is right around the corner for you, Ben. And you announced it, speaking of your newsletter, you announced it in your most recent newsletter that you will be heading to the upper Midwest, going first to see Beloit, then Wisconsin, and then finishing up in St. Paul. 2 of those 3 are parks you have not been to yet. Beloit, obviously a brand new ballpark. St. Paul officially joining affiliated ball last year. What are you looking forward to most about this trip? And, sandwiching in Wisconsin in there just because it's a fun place to see a game, it sounds like.
Yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to this one. June 29th and 30th in Beloit. They are now the Sky Carp, no longer the Snappers, and no longer at Pullman Field, of course. They're now at ABC Supply Stadium, which they moved into last year. That's one of not many ballparks I have not been to in the affiliated landscape. So really looking forward to getting up there, seeing the ways that the new ballpark is different from the old one. And I'm sure the answer to that question, broadly speaking, is in many, many ways. Pullman Field was a comparatively no frills facility. And, I've talked about this before, but Beloit, Wisconsin is a type of market that you can't just guarantee a minor league team is going to exist there. It's a small market. They were in an old ballpark. So getting it done to have that new ballpark and keep minor league baseball in that town, small city, whatever you want to call it, I think is really cool. So I'm interested to checking out the environment there, and then going to Appleton, Wisconsin, home of the Timber Rattlers. I've not been there in 9 years, but that's always a fun team to visit. Do a lot of fun, creative stuff. I went there 9 years ago for 2 nights and just had a rollicking good time. So much going on throughout the toilet paper first pitch on Salute to Paper night. And that was later featured on one of my baseball cards in the 2016 Topps Pro debut insert set. So I don't think I'll do anything this time around that'll get me on a baseball card, especially because there's no longer Ben's Biz baseball cards, but it was good while it lasted. And maybe they will come again some way, but I think Appleton will be a lot of fun. And then St. Paul. I mean, St. Paul is one of those teams, the Saints, that, anyone who follows baseball has heard about them over the years. They were independent, but, real creative, irreverent, a Vecchian philosophy of promotions. And, the team literally has Mike Veck in the ownership group, and always the sort of team I wanted to write about and wanted to cover, but they were independent, and now they're affiliated. So really looking forward to what's going on there. Meeting this year's ball pig. They got a different ball pig every year. Meeting the ushertainers, these ushers / entertainers, hence ushertainers. Really interesting, creative, zany stuff going on. And I'll be there July 2nd and 3rd. So it'll be a big holiday weekend games. And I hope there's room for little old Ben's Biz in the midst of all the chaos.
Yeah, we should say that trip is going to be from June 29th to July 3rd, which means when this podcast is coming out, it's less than 2 weeks away and ending right around 4th of July. So that'll be a fun trip to talk about on podcasts in the future. All right, now let's pivot to our interview segment here, which is a little different this week. I mean, in the past, we've had members of minor league front offices on the show to talk about what's happening around the ballpark, what's happening in the ballpark, who's coming, what they're trying to do to drive people to games. This is about an unexpected surprise guest that came to Asheville. Ben, you want to tee this up for us?
Yeah, I mean, let's keep it with a little sense of mystery here. But, we often, at least on social media, talk about animals on ball fields. But often, it's a possum, a squirrel, maybe a little snake every once in a while, if you're getting a little more exotic. But at the Asheville Tourist home of McCormick Field, they dealt with an animal far more substantial recently. And we're going to talk to Assistant General Manager of the Asheville Tourist, Hannah Martin, all about that. Here on the Show Before the Show podcast, myself and Sam Dykstra, standing to my left, are joined by, at Asheville's McCormick Field, Asheville Tourist Assistant General Manager, Hannah Martin. Hannah, thank you for being here today.
Of course, Ben. Thanks for having me. You too, Sam.
Yeah, it's a joint effort. Everything we do here is a joint effort. And we're here to talk today specifically about something we've seen online, don't know much about, but if you see this little video online, it makes an immediate impact. The Tourists play at McCormick Field, one of the best ballparks in the minors, one of the oldest, very picturesque environment. And on the field at this ballpark, McCormick Field, was a bear ambling about. And that's about all we know. So we thought we need a firsthand account of a bear in a baseball stadium. And that's why Hannah is here.
Yes.
So there's a bear at the baseball stadium.
Yes. Yeah.
Walk us through it.
For sure. And I have to start by saying that I probably would not have seen it unless our general manager, Larry, had called me. I was inside working at my desk and my cell phone rings and I see it's Larry and I pick up and he says, "You need to come outside, hurry. And I'm like, what is going on? And so I run outside on our suite deck, which is down the first baseline. And just as I'm coming out on the deck, there is the bear walking around the warning track so casually, so calmly, and just making his way towards the home dugout around the warning track towards home. On the other side of the field at this point, we basically have our whole stadium operations team. It's four guys, and our groundskeeper is on the field at this point as well. So Bear just keeps moseying around, goes into the visitors' dugout, walks the length of it, comes up the stairs, goes into the seating bowl. We have a small little gate, from the field into the seating bowl. Goes into the seating bowl. And at this point, our ops team starts backing away, starts trying to find some space between it. And then we back right up to the woods. Ben, you've been to our park. We're pretty landlocked here. The outfield is surrounded by woods. The concourse backs up right to the woods. So the bear was able to just, again, leave casually through a gate and go back up to the woods. So it was a pretty quick encounter, but very, very cool to see.
Yeah. And, are there policies in place for bears on the field? Is this something, McCormick Field has been open since, I believe, 1926?
Yeah, 24. Yeah.
1924. Yeah. So maybe in those 98 years, a bear has been on the field before. Were you thinking like, what are we going to do? How do we handle this? And then after you saw the bear, do you have to report it, or is it just one of those things in Asheville?
Yeah. Once the video came out and word started to get around and a lot of our local news outlets started reaching out to us as well, that was one of their questions. How do you handle that? Did you have to call someone to remove it? And they also asked too if there has ever been knowledge of a bear being on the field before. And since I've been here, which I've been here for 7 years, Larry, our general manager, has been here for 20 plus, and even he said we've never seen a bear on the field before. Bears are very popular in Asheville. We have them in our parking lots all the time and around our like operations shed and things like that. So all around us, but never on the field. But no, we didn't call. Bear left on its own, so we almost kind of let it do its own thing.
And how you mentioned there were gates and getting into the lower bowls, and there's just areas that a bear can obviously just bully their way into in situations like this. But how exactly did it get in? Like what entry point did it find? Was there honey at a certain spot? Like how did this happen?
Well, and it wasn't a game day, so it was pretty quiet around here on that day. The team was on the road, and so pretty quiet, but we're thinking that it came from behind the right field wall. And again, just being right in the woods there was nothing really stopping it from walking behind the outfield wall and into the home bullpen. So we think it did that into the bullpen, and then the bullpen connects, right to the field on the warning track. So that's the process we think it took to get onto the warning track.
So have there been any like anti-bear, not traps, but like any anything you guys installed since to make sure this doesn't happen again? Or are you guys just a welcoming environment to bears now?
I think we're going to run with it. I think we're going to see what happens. Yeah.
Yeah, because one thing that I noticed in reading a story about you guys obviously have a bear mascot. You mentioned bears are kind of popular around there. Is there like any worry of like fans showing up thinking they might also now see wildlife at the park?
Well, and that's another thing too. I mean, fans have definitely seen some bears this season already. Like I said, in our parking lots, they will walk right through, and that's been on a game night. There's been some fairly close to the front gate, so fans can definitely have a chance to see a bear when they get here. But also to kind of go with that, our fans are pretty used to seeing animals around the field, I think, at this point, because one thing that the city of Asheville does is, because we are so landlocked with woods and brush and whatnot, once it grows up enough, the city brings in goats. And so we will actually have goats in and behind like our outfield wall that when you're sitting and watching a game are very visible to fans. Even last year when we had them, the last time we had them, fans start chanting "Feed the goats" when they want someone to hit a home run. So bears, goats, animals have become pretty the norm around here, I'd say.
Yeah, that was actually going to be my follow-up, the goat landscaping, because I believe the only ballpark, McCormick Field's the only ballpark with goat landscapers. So you got goats and bears now established as potential ballpark presences. Is there concern that they might team up and the animals will outnumber the humans, and that we might start seeing a whole new reality at McCormick Field?
Maybe we start something new here. I don't know, but the goats have at times made it into our kind of catered picnic areas. So yeah, animals have ran around this place for a little bit, but I think the main thing that we're concerned about with now the bears and the goats is keeping them separate, because that would not be good. But
no, potential for disaster there, but
absolutely.
So you've got bears, or at least a bear. You've got goats. But as I said before, McCormick Field is, I believe, a pretty special place to see a game. For those who haven't been, can you talk a little bit about, just in general, beyond the bears and goats, what it's like to attend a tourist game, and what makes it special?
Yeah. I think the number one thing that we have here, obviously, and you know this, Ben, it's just the history, the nostalgia that you feel when you're walking through the gate. So many people, even on a non-game day, just want to stop by and take a picture of our front archway, that says McCormick Field. And you're walking into that, and a lot of people, yes, we're called the tourists, but a lot of people just say it has such a homey feel. We've been a part of this community for such a long time now, and the community really backs us that I think no matter where you are from, when you come to take in a game, you pick up on that. You pick up on the community and that everyone kind of is there for the same reason. It's a really special place. I started here in 2015 as an intern, and have been fortunate to not have to leave since. So I, like many of the fans, you don't want to leave once you get here.
Yeah, picking up on that in terms of how do you guys balance what modern minor league baseball is and trying to get people out to the park with that homey feel, having a ballpark that goes back 98 years?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I would say as far as, upgrades, we have implemented some new technology as far as our ticketing, like everyone making a push to digital ticketing and getting, self-service scanners for your barcodes or, your mobile tickets. Same with our concessions. We've implemented an app, that you can order food right from your phone and get it delivered to your seats. So we kind of have a few things here and there, but overall the main infrastructure, I think, is what hasn't changed and what is recognizable. And so that really is what people pick up on, I think.
And obviously the Bear was an unexpected guest this year, but in terms of the rest of the season, about 3 months left in the 2022 season, plenty of baseball left to play. What are you looking forward to most about the rest of the way down there in Asheville?
Yeah. Well, and, Sam, it's hard to believe that we only have 3 months left, as I'm kind of typing up and going through the system. I cannot believe we are, basically at the halfway point. It's just wild to me. But I think for me now, I am super excited. We've had good crowds so far, but we're starting to really see an uptick in our numbers, in our groups. And that school's out, our July 3rd game, where we get a lot of people from all over. So I'm just really looking forward to seeing a full ballpark consistently. There's nothing that beats that, because we as staff, we feed off that as well. So it really helps to bring energy and engagement with our staff. So I'm excited for it.
And the Asheville Tourists, McCormick Field is the home of the original Thirsty Thursday. Actually owns the team owns the trademark to the term.
Yeah.
And there's been a Beer City Tourists alternate identity in recent years, referencing perhaps Thirsty Thursdays, but also the Asheville beer scene. So that's all well and good, but going forward, can we see the Bear City Tourists?
We might. Well, Ben, it's funny you bring that up. Our Beer City Tourist game is actually tonight.
I did not even know that.
Seriously, you didn't know?
No.
No. Well, that's good. It is tonight. So yeah, we take on this new identity for one night only, the Beer City Tourists. Guys wear, the specialty jerseys and the hats, and we auction them off and, pick a local charity here. But yeah, we might have to. Bears have been just running wild in Asheville this summer from what I've heard. I mean, they get in people's cars, obviously, in their yards and trash and things like that. So we might have to start to play that up more. We do have Teddy, like you said, Teddy Tourist.
Beer City, Bear City, any way you pronounce it. Great place to see a game, Asheville's McCormick Field. And hopefully you can go there and see some wildlife. Hannah Martin, the assistant general manager of the Asheville Tourists, thanks so much for joining the show before the show and filling us in on these wildlife adventures.
Absolutely. Thank you guys for having me.
New Year, same extra value meals at McDonald's. So now get 2 snack wraps, plus fries, and a medium soft drink for just $8.
For limited time only. Prices and participation may vary. Prices may be higher in Hawaii, Alaska, and California, and for delivery.
We interrupt this podcast to bring you another thrilling edition of Ghosts of the Miners. Now, here's your correspondent and host, Joshua Jackson.
Welcome back to Ghosts of the Miners, in which all of you out there in Radio Land must identify the legitimate historical ball club hiding amidst the fraudulent pair. One was once a solid presence. I pulled the others out of thin air. In the last segment, I asked you which of the following minor league baseball teams did at one time exist. A, the Renton Air Rockets. B, the Dayton Aviators. C, the Kitty Hawk Cloudbusters. Unless you're prone to flights of fancy, you picked B, the Dayton Aviators, who flew by a wing and a prayer from 1928 to 1930. Representing the city where the Wright brothers' ideas really took off, the Aviators tried to navigate their way into the hearts of Ohioans as charter members of the newly reborn Central League in the year after Charles Lindbergh's transatlantic solo expedition. Yes, those were flighty years. In their inaugural campaign of 28, they struggled to get off the ground. Although those Aviators had a roster with men of sky-high renown, think player-manager Everett Boo and backstop Bobby Shang, most of those careers were on the descent. Some people called Boo coach, but a lot of players said he was first class. There was at least one fast riser among those early Aviators, though, as 20-year-old Jimmy Jordan, who would later play for the Brooklyn Dodgers, swatted 27 homers and stole 28 bases. The next year, Dayton had cause to aim higher, as those Aviators included Billy Herman, who'd go on to a Hall of Fame career that included 10 Major League All-Star nods, mostly with the Chicago Cubs. But Herman was even more of a Cub when he was a 19-year-old using his time with the Aviators as a runway for the soaring accomplishments to come. Accounts of the time have him popping up bunt attempts and struggling with weird hops in the field. You might say he made some errors. The Aviators got some weird hops too. In fact, the Dayton Nine were poised to become, despite the prospect of Herman, hermits, or at least orphans. Over the 1929-1930 offseason, rumors swirled concerning a sale of the club, and by early 1930, there'd be suggestions in print that the St. Louis Cardinals had spent as much as $24,000 supporting the Aviators in 1928 and had not seen their money fly back to them yet, and that the team had also watched upwards of $12,000 vanish into the horizon in 1929. The Aviators couldn't get out of a tailspin in 1930 and had to bail out after crying Mayday at season's end. Dayton aired out another franchise, the Ducks, for 1932 and won the whole thing. And today's Dayton Dragons are one of the most envied clubs in High A. Some teams just fly too close to the sun. And that's how the Aviators crashed and burned. Now, on to the question for next time. Which of these teams shelled out in the minors of yesteryear? A, the Suffolk Nuts. B, the Lake Charles Snappers. C, the Harlan Egg Beaters. Want to know the answer? Get cracking. Or tune into the next Ghosts of the Miners. But for now, you'll have to excuse me. My producer Ben Hill is trying to make baklava. And honey, he ain't got it.
So we're about set to say goodbye for this week's episode of the show before the show. You can subscribe to MILB.TV and check out all of the best talent across the minor leagues. You can also, by the way, catch virtually a game a night free on MLB TV, a minor league broadcast, the minor leagues on MLB TV. And if you like what you see there, you can add the MILB TV subscription to your MLB TV subscription for a discounted rate. But Sam, what are you watching on minor league baseball's top talent on MILB TV this week?
Yeah, so if you follow me on Twitter, you might have known that I've kind of had this running gag the past couple of days. Ever since Estuary Ruiz was called up to El Paso, because he joins CJ Abrams at the top of that Chihuahuas lineup. And I like to think of them in tandem as a 2-person carousel. That's the nickname I'm giving them, is the carousel. It's not a Mad Men reference for anybody who has watched Mad Men, but it's just the idea those guys they get on base and they go round and round and round. Ruiz currently leads minor league baseball in a host of categories. But the reason why I give him that nickname is because he leads minor league baseball in stolen bases with 46 between his time at El Paso and AA San Antonio. He also leads minor league baseball currently in batting average at 372, which is incredible, and in OPS at 1.156. He was not on our Padres top 30 to begin the year. He had fallen off the last couple of years. He's making better swing decisions this year. He's putting himself in better ability to make contact. His power numbers are up. The speed has always been there. It seems like he's playing a quality center field. Obviously, CJ Abrams is one to watch. He opened the year in the major leagues. Didn't quite work there. Now he's at AAA. He had never been at AAA beforehand, so now I think he's settling in really well. He's an 80 grade runner himself. Those two guys are absolutely electric at the top of the lineup, and you're going to want to watch them while you can until they get called up to San Diego, which, Abrams always felt possible once he reestablished himself with the Chihuahuas. But Asheville Ruiz, based off, the San Diego clamoring that I'm hearing right now, at least from fans, he seems like he could be a second half option for the Padres as well. So that's been really fun to see at the top of that lineup. You want to catch them next week. They will be in Sacramento, but I'm sure they'll do just as much damage on the road. Tyler, yours is a callback to what we talked about in the first segment. Yeah,
it is. It's a good bookend. And it's also just a lazy and obvious pick. But Ezekiel Tovar and the Hartford Yard Goats are home this weekend to take on the Akron Rubber Ducks. Some fun talent on that Akron team as well. But if you want to see what the hype is about with somebody like Ezekiel Tovar, you can find him on MILB.tv. He is at home this weekend at Dunkin' Donuts Park in Hartford, Connecticut, and then on the road at Somerset coming up on Tuesday. So you can check him out against either the Cleveland Guardians affiliate this weekend or New York Yankees affiliate starting next week. And that'll do it on this week's episode of the Show Before the Show. But before we go, we're calling all MILB fans. MILBstore.com is your one-stop shop for minor league team official gear. Whether you're searching for the perfect fitted cap, the latest on-field theme night jersey, or the perfect gift for a family member, you can browse over 500 different logos and designs from your favorite MILB teams. Head on over to MILBstore.com today and subscribe to our newsletter to receive 10% off your first purchase. MILB Store, we have your fun in store.
And there's one thing I want to call out real quick on that MILB Store thing. First, if you are listening to this before Father's Day, it might be a little late to order something on Father's Day, but you can get 20% off with the code MILBDAD. So maybe you are a dad and you want to order it for yourself, you can get 20% off. You can do what my dad always did, which was basically buy his own stuff and just say, like, you got this for me.
Thanks for this that I got from you.
Yeah.
It's pretty smart.
It's perfectly viable. Everybody gets what they want. It works out. But also you mentioned theme night in that read there, Tyler. They have a really cool theme night collection page. And as some of you may recall, we did a hat draft a couple months ago.
We did.
Very fun on our end. Seemed like it was very fun on your end to listen to as well. And I've been always trying to think of what's a way we can bring back drafts between me, you, and Ben. This seems like the perfect opportunity for that. The theme night collection. There are just so many different theme nights that some of which we've talked about on the show. The Akron JoJos are here. The Coney Island Franks are here. The Charleston Rainbows. We go on and on down the list. I don't want to reveal who I might be drafting, but all of it is here. All of it has links to where you can purchase some of this stuff and get your own theme night collection, hats, shirts, whatever. So keep an eye out. I don't know when, because we're in the thick of the season right now, but a theme night draft might be coming down the line.
Yeah, I think that's a very good one. I also, so as I mentioned earlier, drove to Texas for a wedding last week or 10 days ago, whatever. And then went on to East Texas to see my girlfriend's family. But the first night we stayed in Amarillo, did not get there in time to go see the Sod Poodles play at Hodgetown. But I did go, for anybody who is familiar with Amarillo, Texas, I did go to the Big Texan Steak Ranch and had a gigantic steak and it was amazing. And so now I feel like I'm like partially from Amarillo because I had a huge stake in Amarillo. So I gotta get a Sod Poodles hat at some point. I don't know if I'm gonna go with a pointy boots hat or if I'm gonna just go with a Sod Poodles hat. I don't know. I gotta figure that out. But that's probably gonna be my next.
One thing I like about the Sod Poodles whole look is that it feels like a special hat for somebody else. It's very much non-traditional, I guess. And that, I don't know, it seems to travel really well. Like if somebody gets it, they really get it. And if they don't, well, here's just a Sod Poodle on a hat wearing his own hat.
We were also in, I don't know, some super small town yesterday. And I look out the window and we were, I think, 60 miles away from Amarillo. And there was a billboard on the side of the road that said, "You've just entered Sod Poodles country." And I was very happy about it. So kudos to the Amarillo Sod Poodles for that. The billboard on 287 down there near Amarillo down there.
Man goes to Texas once. Jeez.
My girlfriend is not impressed with my imitation of a Texas accent. So anyway, head on over to MILBstore.com and get all your favorite stuff. And that'll do it for this week's episode of the show before the show. For Sam Dykstra and Benjamin Hill and Josh Jackson and everybody else, I'm Tyler Maughan. We'll talk to you next week.